What kind of person creates a system? Not to serve others, but to reshape the world according to their vision. In solo leveling, there exists a being known only as the architect, and his psychology reveals something deeply disturbing, something that exists in real people right now. Today, we're breaking down the psychology behind one of modern manhwa's most unsettling villains, and by the end of this video, you may never see his actions the same way again. The architect barely appears in solo leveling. You might never even learn his actual name, but his influence, it reshapes everything. Because he did something extraordinary, he created a system, not just any system, a system that triggered gates and dungeons across the entire world. A system designed to transform humans and existing beings into God-level vessels through selection and transformation. But here's what's psychologically fascinating. He didn't create this to help anyone. He didn't create this because he wanted to save the world. He created it for one reason, a vision only he could conceive and understand. And everything, the gates, the dungeons, the selection of powerful beings, exists because one person decided humanity needed to be fundamentally restructured. That restructuring, only he could design it, only he comprehends it. That belief changes everything about how we analyze his psychology, because this isn't someone who's trying to rule the world through conquest or force. This is someone who genuinely believes he's the architect of human evolution itself. To understand why the architect built this system, we need to look at something psychologists have documented for decades. It's called narcissistic personality patterns. Here's the thing though, the architect didn't just build a system, he built a belief about himself, a belief so absolute it shaped reality itself. He exhibits all 5 core traits of narcissism, and you can see each one playing out directly in the story. So let's examine them one by one. Trait 1, an extreme sense of personal importance. People with narcissistic patterns don't just see themselves as capable, they see themselves as uniquely superior. As someone who understands truth nobody else can grasp. The core belief is simple. I see what nobody else sees. Look at the Cartenon temple. The architect didn't build just a dungeon, he built a church, an actual place of worship. Inside, people bow to a statue, a godlike figure, and not because they're forced to necessarily. The inscription says it clearly, worship the Lord. This isn't a game mechanic, this is his internal reality. He doesn't see himself as a system designer or an architect. He sees himself as divine, as deserving literal worship. And the most disturbing part, he's not trying to hide it or disguise it. He's building temples to himself, creating religion around his existence. That's not just confidence, that's delusional certainty in his own divinity. And that level of conviction is what makes him so psychologically compelling, because it means he's not lying about how he sees himself, he genuinely believes it. On trait 2, an obsession with fantasies of unlimited power. Narcissists don't just want control, they fantasize about it constantly. They imagine worlds where their design becomes law, where everything bends to their will without exception. With the architect, this fantasy is made visible through the system itself. Every quest Jin Woo receives, that's a command from the architect. Every penalty for missing a workout, that's his hand controlling reality. He created a system so comprehensive it doesn't just control society, it controls the human body itself. Think about that. Level up screens, stat increases, penalties for not complying. These are all tools of micromanagement. He's not just dictating what humans do, he's dictating how they evolve. He's literally controlling human progression itself. That's the ultimate control fantasy, reshaping human existence at the cellular level. A world where every heartbeat, every muscle increase, every moment of development is orchestrated by his design. The world doesn't just obey him, it has to obey him. Mathematically, inevitably, there's no choice, there's no escape. And that's what makes this so psychologically sophisticated. He's not ruling through force, he's ruling through architecture, through design, through a system so perfect nobody can resist it. Trait 3, a constant need for validation of their genius. Narcissists don't just want power, they need others to recognize how superior they are. It's not enough to be powerful, they need that power acknowledged. When Jin Woo returns to the Cartenon temple, the architect is waiting. But notice something important. He doesn't attack immediately. He talks, he gloats, he smirks. You've grown quite a bit, he says. And why does he say that? Because he wants Jin Woo to understand that he created him. That every ounce of Jin Woo's strength comes from the architect's design. That smirk, that's narcissistic supply in action. He's like a painter waiting for someone to finally notice his masterpiece. He's orchestrated Jin Woo's entire journey. Every level, every stat increase, every struggle, every hardship, all of it, designed by him. But here's the thing. His validation doesn't come from Jinwoo personally saying you're a genius. It comes from the system proving his brilliance. The fact that Jinwoo survived, the fact that the system worked perfectly, that the selection process identified a worthy vessel, that proves his genius, and that's all the validation he needs. It's proof that his vision was superior and that validation is essential to his existence. Without it, he's just a system running in the background. But with it, he's a god. Trait 4, a complete inability to connect with others' suffering. This is the dangerous one. Narcissists can understand emotions intellectually. They just can't feel them. Other people don't register as fully human. They're obstacles, tools, components in a system. Remember the very first chapter of Solo Leveling, the Double Dungeon. Experienced hunters, people who trained their entire lives screaming, dying, bodies crushed, limbs torn off. Mr. Song loses his arm watching his comrades die. Desperation, terror, hopelessness. To us watching that, it's horror, pure horror. We feel their fear. But to the architect, it's something completely different. It's a selection test, a brutal filter designed to identify someone capable of surviving the system. He watches them die with no sadism, no cruelty, no pleasure, just clinical coldness, like a scientist observing an experiment. The data is interesting. Let's continue. To him, their lives aren't lives. They're variables in a selection process, data points, variables to analyze. His system killed hundreds in that dungeon, and it never bothered him, not for a second, because their suffering didn't register as morally significant. They were simply necessary casualties in his design, and that's what makes narcissistic indifference so terrifying. It's not hatred, it's not sadism, it's the complete absence of care. Trait 5, a belief that the world owes them. Narcissists operate with one fundamental assumption. Rules apply to everyone else, but not to them. They're exempt, special, above the natural laws that bind everyone else. The architect designed a system where he's untouchable, where reality bends to his will. He's entitled to absolute dominion, entitled to reshape human existence, entitled to control everything. But then something happens. Jinwoo lands a hit, Jinwoo acts outside the design, Jinwoo defies the system, and the moment he does, the architect's face breaks. Not in fear, in betrayal, in cosmic indignation. How dare a mere human? This is a narcissistic injury. When the grandiose self-image is threatened, when the narcissist's special status is questioned, they experience it as a personal assault on their very existence. It's not just anger, it's existential panic. The architect screams because to him the world is glitching. It's not obeying his design. It's not respecting his birthright to be untouchable. The anger isn't about losing, it's about someone daring to question his superiority. That moment reveals something crucial, the fragility underneath all that grandiosity. Remove the system, remove the control, remove the design. What's left is someone who can't handle not being special. Here's something interesting. Notice the architect's need to create, not to serve. Not to command directly, to architect. He didn't just design a system, he designed a system so comprehensive it transforms reality without his direct involvement. Gates appear, dungeons manifest, humans awaken to power, all automatic, all according to his design, all the time. Psychologists recognize this pattern in people with extreme narcissism. The compulsive need to build systems that validate their genius. It's not enough to imagine superiority. They need to construct it. They need to build something tangible, literal, or figurative that proves their vision. The architect's system is his monument. It's not just evidence of his power. It's proof that he's capable of designing something nobody else could ever conceive. That's why he couldn't just manipulate things from the shadows. He had to design a system that inevitably produces powerful beings, because if he created such a system, then he must be godlike in vision. He must be divine in understanding. The system doesn't just work perfectly, it validates his entire existence. Another pattern that's crucial is how he controls without being seen. The architect doesn't place himself at the top of his system. He's not the king. He's not even visible. He's absent from it entirely. Yet everything, every gate, every awakening, every transformation traces back to him. This is called invisible narcissism. The person manipulates reality from behind the scenes. He allows others to believe they have agency, even though every meaningful outcome has already been determined by his design. The beauty of this approach, in his mind, is that nobody can challenge what they don't know exists. He achieves absolute control while remaining unaccountable. No one can blame him. No one can resist him because they don't even know he's there. And when his existence is finally revealed, when the entire world discovers he engineered everything, that's the ultimate payoff. That's the narcissistic fantasy made real. Dominion so complete it becomes invisible, then revealed all at once. Proof of his superiority, recognition of his genius, everyone forced to acknowledge he was always in control. Here's a critical pattern in narcissistic behavior: the use of others as instruments, not intentional cruelty, not deliberate malice, just an inability to see their humanity as equivalent to their own. The architect's system kills thousands. It forces impossible choices on hunters. It restructures entire civilizations, tears families apart, creates suffering on a massive scale, and none of it troubles him. Not one moment of guilt. Why? Because in his calculation, these are acceptable costs. Humans are components in a system only he understands. Their struggle is the friction that makes his design work. Their suffering is the pressure that creates change. Researchers who study extreme narcissism have documented something consistent. People at this level don't experience guilt about collateral damage. Instead, they see it as validation. Their design creates sacrifice, hardship, upheaval, but those things prove the system works. The system is functioning perfectly, exactly as designed. The architect isn't disturbed by the chaos his system causes, he's satisfied by it. It demonstrates that his design has power, that his vision reshapes reality, that he was right all along, that everything he created is working exactly as intended. And here's the most disturbing pattern: how he justifies his actions. He's not creating destruction, he's creating necessity. He's not killing people, he's creating evolution. This is called vulnerable narcissism. It's the psychological mechanism that allows someone to cause catastrophic damage while remaining convinced they're a savior. From the architect's perspective, humanity needed this. They were stagnant, weak, complacent. Without gates and dungeons, humans would never evolve. They'd never discover their potential. Without his system's pressure, they'd never grow strong enough to matter. He didn't reshape the world out of cruelty or hate. He did it out of enlightened necessity. In his mind, he's the only one wise enough to understand what humanity truly needs, and he has the vision and the power to design a system that forces that evolution, regardless of the cost. This is devastating in real-world narcissism. It allows abusers to convince themselves, and sometimes their victims, that cruelty is kindness, that destruction is growth, that suffering is necessary medicine. The architect's entire existence is built on this lie, and the tragedy is he believes it completely. So, why does understanding the architect's psychology matter? Because narcissistic individuals who possess real power operate exactly like this. They don't see themselves as villains, they see themselves as visionaries. They believe they're uniquely capable of understanding truth, that they're justified in restructuring others' lives around their vision, that they're entitled to sacrifice others for their goals, that they're incapable of empathy for those affected, and that when others finally understand, they'll recognize they were right all along. This pattern exists in cult leaders, in abusive partners, in rulers who consolidate power, in corporate leaders who justify exploitation as innovation and progress, in parents who impose their vision on their children without consent or consideration. Anywhere there's concentrated power combined with narcissistic psychology and the ability to design systems, this pattern emerges. Understanding it helps you recognize it when you encounter it. And if you recognize it in someone in your life, or even in yourself, seeking professional help can break the cycle. Because narcissism is treatable, and the damage it causes can be healed. The architect is a fascinating study in narcissistic psychology, precisely because he's not visibly evil. He's visibly convinced. And that conviction, backed by the ability to design systems, is far more dangerous than malice. If this breakdown resonated with you, if you recognize these patterns, drop a comment, and if you want deeper analysis into the psychology of complex characters, subscribe. New videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm Villain Psychology. Let's understand the minds behind the most unsettling antagonists.